Hi there, welcome to Bitcoin Cash Wyckoff Technical Analysis session. Bitcoin Cash has been going through a very interesting period for almost 10 weeks now. It has been trading sideways pretty much between the yellow key level of $530 and the green key level of $615. So where is it heading? The more I look at it, the more it's showing us the yellow Wyckoff scenario. So let's quickly take a look at both the weekly and daily charts and see what we can find out. Here we're looking at the weekly chart first because that's going to bound where the daily chart can go to. Currently, what we are seeing here is basically, like I said, well, we're actually in the 11 weeks. So here you see we've got 10 bars, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. This week is actually the 11th, counting from July 21st, that particular week. That's when the horizontal or the sideways trading started, and we are still within that range. You see the highs has been bouncing mostly between the green key level and the yellow key level. In terms of Wyckoff, previously we've got a blue scenario which has very frequent activities within those 11 weeks. But then I also raised the question that this period of 10 to 11 weeks of horizontal trading can be a form of accumulation while we are climbing during the PSY, the preliminary supply period, before the actual buying climax happens. So if you're a supporter of Bitcoin Cash, or if you're bullish about Bitcoin Cash, obviously you would prefer the yellow scenario, because that's when the price would eventually break outside of the 615 green key level instead of fake breakout like what we had back in the week of September 15th, where it got rejected by this pink line over here. We want the price to go shoot above those two lines and eventually hit the 700 key level. That is a level that's got touched on by Bitcoin Cash back in 2004 April, a year and a half now. So the previous peak back in December last year wasn't even close. So we want that to at least hit that level so it breaks the curse of a declining peak. The past few sessions I've been mentioning repeatedly that we don't want this to be like the buying climax or even the upthrust ending here, because this pink box is a declining trend that no long-term supporters of Bitcoin Cash would like to see. So once it breaks above this box, that means we can take this away at least for another year probably, because if it really ends here and it comes back down to an accumulation, and then when the next distribution comes and it also falls below that particular ceiling of the box, that's the time we have to rethink whether Bitcoin Cash is still worth following. Okay, enough for the big picture. That's where we hope to see it happen, but the likelihood of that, if it's a yellow scenario, it won't be 2080. So these two are for the blue scenario. Yellow scenario, actually this has a much higher chance, I would say that's a 70. If the blue scenario is completely wiped out and this is really a PSY, obviously we are expecting a buying climax to come, and then eventually obviously there's an automatic reaction afterwards, much like what we had here. But it's really tricky time because the behavior here is just weird. So you see, if you look at Bitcoin Cash, ever since the price dropped since end of 2021. There's no such kind of prolonged horizontal trading that happened that lasted for 11 weeks. Even in the early days, during these climbs, at most there were like 5 weeks. That's all. So we're doubling that time now. So assuming there's still a chance for upward subdistribution or actually a buying climax, depending on which scenario eventually plays out. Now when we get to the daily chart, we're able to see like after this squeeze and now the breakout has happened. So last week we talked about this breakout time point at basically the lines crosses on September 28th, so just a few days back, and indeed the price bounced up and broke outside of this downward trend line. So we don't need this line anymore because the breakout already happened. What's interesting is when the price climbed, this now can still be an LPSY but at a pretty high level, and the interesting thing is it re-entered this upward channel box. So you see what happened here, right? We've got this uptrend started since April this year, and it lasted for 6 months, and eventually it broke outside of the channel on September 22nd, but it took a quick U-turn and returned to this box. However, the tricky part is this price action today seems to be bringing it back down to outside of the box. So this smaller box here is the downward trend that has formed, started, let's say counting from September 18th. That's when it started to do this ping pong action. So if it really comes back down, falls below the white line and also the yellow, coming to the bottom of this downward channel, then it's pretty much confirmed this trend is valid. As of now, it's still 50-50 because it just re-entered this. If for the next 2 days it's going to trade narrow range, very narrow, I mean, there are 2 time points again. Not that it's likely because the price currently is obviously below this blue line already. So assuming it's trading within this wedge, this time point here, near October 9th, the coming Thursday is the first time point. Let's put a 1 here. And then the second time point is here, October 14th, the Tuesday afterwards. Obviously, we've got time to cover that because next session will be before this time point. And eventually this, October 23rd, the third time point over here. So depending on where the price is heading, if it trades and stays back above the upward channel box, then this time point 3 would be irrelevant. But if it doesn't stay above or within this upward trend and comes back down during time point 1, the coming week basically, or even as early as today because there's still 19 hours plus left, it's going to trade between this blue line and the white line, and that's when things get interesting to that, heading towards that time point, because it either breaks again this downward trend or it's going to confirm it's going to get down further to challenge the yellow support level or key level. That's around $530, and eventually show us a new sign of weakness. So the last sign of weakness we had was back in September 26th, and this time when it comes down, it would be somewhere around mid-October. So interesting horizontal trading period, very busy chart, especially for the daily time frame. The volume themselves pretty impressive for the past 3 days, but then the last 2 days was pretty much the fight between the bulls and the bears, because we see this first short body over here, people buying from the bottom, pushing the price up to stay within the upward channel. And yesterday, very much the same, that people tried to push it up further, but then got rejected from the green T level of $615, and today coming back down even further. So again, big battle between the bulls and the bears, and not surprising if the price continues to bounce between this the ceiling and the bottom of this downward channel box, just to move this line, because the breakout already happened, and right now is somewhere like this. So it's still this more or less the same time point around Thursday, the coming Thursday. So this breakout is going to show up definitely for this week. Like I said, is it going to do the ping pong, coming down back to test the bottom edge, or is it going to stay above the upward channel box? I think the likelihood of it coming down is higher than breaking to the upside. By then it will be this 30% happen. Yeah, it's probably going to retest this level where it failed. So let's see. I think that's pretty much for Bitcoin Cash. Interesting behavior it's exhibiting. Like I said, it hasn't happened for the past 5 years, and now it's showing us this prolonged period of battle between the bulls and bears. There's a chance for it to break outside of this downtrend, and hopefully that's the case, because we want to cover Bitcoin Cash for a longer period of time instead of abandoning it because of its confirmation of this downtrend for peaks after peaks. Thanks for joining me today. See you tomorrow. Cheers.